Good afternoon. Hello to my wonderful nephew, Luke. Luke, it's lovely to see that you are tuning in. About time to up the gills. Now I'm going to put this on here, get myself sorted. I've just been doing an online retreat day for the Royal Foundation of St. Catherine. It's been fantastic. Most people were there and I was here because I wasn't feeling brilliant to travel, but it's been a wonderful day. I hope you've been having a good day as well. We're almost ready to start up the gills. And please do say hi on the chat. If you're able to, say where you're watching from, and settle in. It's Friday afternoon, hey, 4:30, so it's definitely time for another springtime moment live, or if you'd prefer, for Passion to Pentecost live. We're tracing a gentle path from Easter through to Pentecost at the end of May, and it is lovely to have you along. Thank you for tuning in. Wanted to read you a little clip, a little passage from Anne Lamott's lovely new book. I don't know if any of you have been reading Anne Lamott's book, Dusk, Night, Dawn, but it's wonderful, and it's written in her usual inimitable style. She's such a good writer. So let me start with some words from Anne Lamott about the soul. And obviously it's a favourite topic of mine. And I like what she writes. Certain qualities are of soul and not mind or culture, she says. Curiosity is one way we know that our souls are functioning. How curious are you? So is a deep goodness. So is presence. When the soul is functioning properly, it tugs on your trouser leg to slow down, but otherwise it observes, mostly quietly, but sometimes with its mouth hanging open and a wiggly fascination, and sometimes with outright bliss. Soul is apt to distract us from serious goals and aspirations. It is as playful and illogical as a kitten, and as watchful as God or a baby. It rubs its back lazily against trees. It stops and gasps at beauty and is bathed in it, and sometimes it begins to weep. Sometimes it begins to weep. I am going to light a candle. Talking about weeping, I'm going to light a candle for a couple of friends of mine who have just received, one of them a really name and title again. Okay. Anne Lamott, Dusk, Night, Dawn. Dusk, Night, Dawn. A couple of friends of mine, one of which husband and wife, who have received a really nasty diagnosis this week, and it's a terrible time of waiting for them for the prognosis. And we all know people who have been there, and you may have been there yourself. So I'm lighting this candle today for them, and I just remember them now in my own mind and heart, but also for anyone else who is waiting, whether it's waiting for results or waiting for that first hug, or waiting for some light to break through, or just waiting for what's next without knowing what that is. So if this is for you, if you are waiting, then that candle is for you. But I'm sure you know a friend or loved one who is waiting too, kind of in that in-between stage. So please do pop a name in the chat now, and we'll just hold those people up to God for the next few moments. And let that be a collective prayer, both of hoping and of lament, and of asking God to be present with people in their waiting. Please do pop some names in now. Thank you. Brian after a heart attack yesterday, Heather, Maya, Judith, Yanis, Steve and Eve, Nathan, Oliver, Rowena, Judy, Jean, Margaret, Doreen, Alexander, Chris and Jeff, Robin, Matt, Jenny, Pat and Zoe, Carolyn and Kieran, Nicole, Jill and Neil, Karen and Rachel, Julia and Richard, Sarah, Nigel and Sue. And just keep those coming. And we remember that we are community here today, and we reach well beyond this community. And God's love, as we receive it, flows through us to those that we remember in this moment. Why don't we breathe in for a moment? Just keep those names coming, and let's breathe in, relax our shoulders, and just breathe in that love of God, the life of God, the wisdom, the kindness, the mercy, the presence. Just as you are filled, just be conscious of you receiving that grace, that mercy, that love, that presence yourself. And then keeping the name of that person that you know who is waiting in a place of perhaps of pain or sorrow, just allowing that love now to flow to them. And actually believing as we do this, that really is flowing to them in this moment, that this isn't some kind of nice thing to fill a little bit of time on a Friday afternoon, but that we are receiving God's love in this very moment. And we are sending that love to them. And that this community is bound intricately, like an ecosystem of love, across time and space within this very moment. Catherine was given some pine cones today. I love this. I absolutely love this by her friend, and she, as you know, hasn't been particularly well either over this last year. And a friend said that they were in 3 states. Kind of, one was completely closed up. One was just half opening, and one was really fully open, and seeds were able to be scattered. And I thought that was a lovely kind of metaphor, really. We're all in different places, aren't we? But actually there is a wholeness within that as well. And Catherine's friend popped these words from Thessalonians: "Now may the Lord himself, the Lord of peace, pour into you his peace in every circumstance and in every possible way. The Lord's tangible presence be with you." And that is my prayer for you this afternoon, and for those you love and know. A little more thought now on prayer, and I'd like to read you a familiar passage that I've quoted several times in my work from Barbara Brown Taylor's book, Learning to Walk in the Dark. But I think it's always worth coming back to these passages every now and again. And she's talking about prayer. It's not actually her quote. It's a quote from somebody that she heard talking. I think it was her vicar, but she caught it, and it's a beautiful quote. When I'm fully fully alert, she says, to whatever or whoever is right in front of me. When I am electrically aware of the tremendous gift of being alive. When I'm able to give myself wholly to the moment that I'm in prayer. Prayer is happening, and is not necessarily even something I'm doing. God is happening, and I am lucky enough to know that I am in the midst. I will never grow tired of that line. Prayer is happening and is not necessarily something I'm even doing. God is happening, and I'm lucky enough to know that I am in the midst. I mentioned last week that I saw my first swallow. I wonder if anyone else has seen one this week. I was reminded, looking back through last year's Passion to Pentecost series, that I had seen my first swallow around about the same time. I don't know if you remember, but I had been praying with my daughter, who had been brought very, very tearfully low by the lockdown. It just kind of caught up with her. And I've been praying with her that we might just sense some progress through those worrying days. And I prayed that we would sense that, just like the hope that comes when we see the first swallow of the year. And it was that magical moment when, as I opened my eyes and looked through the window, I saw my first swallow of the year fly past. And it was just such an amazing, unexpected gift. And it didn't matter so much to me, really, in a sense, whether it was a direct answer to prayer or not. I just like to think that we had simply tuned in prayerfully in the present to that moment, somehow, to what was happening. We tuned into the Creator happening as we were in the midst. And sometimes when you tune in, you're just given those moments, aren't you, of epiphany or clarity, of wonder, of awe, those moments that take your breath away. And even if we don't, we are tuned in to God happening all around us in this particular moment, and you can almost feel it. Could we pause to breathe again for a moment? You might like to close your eyes, to pray, to be prayed, in a sense. Prayer is happening, and we are in the midst. To notice for a moment that God is happening. To become present to God's presence, sustaining, enlivening, in a sense, rising like spring sap. A few moments pause as you breathe in and out and feel very much in the midst of God happening between us, within us, around us. And I wonder, just over the next minute or so, if you would be willing to just share a line. Lovely to see, Coral and Philip, that you've had your first cuckoo today. How lovely. When have you noticed just in the last few days that God is happening and you are lucky enough to know that you are in the midst? Just pop a phrase or a sentence. You might even want to start it with God was happening. It would be lovely to see a few things. Swallows and Romsey this week. Wonderful, Liz. Thank you. Just noticed a swallow on my cup. Just pop a word or a phrase or a sentence in the chat if you would. Field of Bluebells, girl, thank you. Fresh green leaves. Every time I behold a sight of nature or hear the birds. Mallard duck fed from your hand yesterday, Glenna. Isn't it amazing when we just come into such kind of close proximity with wildness, and we can let wildness come alive in us as well. God was happening in a tree full of sparrows. Precious time with my daughter. Seeing God in so many varied shades of green. Pink flowering cherry blossom. Hasn't the blossom been amazing this year? In a meeting with a loving friend, in a heartfelt conversation with a new colleague. Baby birds just so full of life. An adult deer watching you digging in a friend's garden. Pheasants, gorgeous plumage, fresh foliage on a beech hedge. Lying on a tree trunk, watching the fleeting clouds and the tall trees gently swaying. God was happening as I watched a stag as he watched me. Wow, that eye contact. Amazing. Timely opportunity. Beautiful wisteria growing on a London block of flats en route to Guy's. Peace be with you, Michelle. And thank you for tuning in today. Beginning a mentoring relationship with a young man on a great walk with marvellous views, of course, the wonder of a bluebell wood, the lesser spotted woodpecker. So many instances of where God is happening. Let's be really present to that as we go through these emerging spring days. Wanted to just share a couple of thoughts that just about how we approach these days ahead. It's a new season that we're in, and we are entering a new season, aren't we? Certainly here in the UK, as restrictions just gently begin to ease. And so I wanted to just remind ourselves about how we want to step into this season of spring, but also step through towards Pentecost. And some wonderful words that were probably familiar to you from Mary Oliver that say, now in the spring, I kneel. And that's wonderful for a start, isn't it? Now in the spring, I kneel. I put my face into the packets of violets, the dampness, the freshness, the sense of everness. You can tell she's a poet. Something is wrong, she says. I know it. If I don't keep my attention on eternity. Attention is the beginning of devotion. I love that sense of keeping our attention on eternity as we contemplate on our knees the violets, the dampness, the freshness. There is that connection with the more through the material, through the world of nature, through what's in front of us, and that physical material connection. And somehow as we really stop to pay attention, which is the beginning of devotion, something rises in us and a deeper connection is made, isn't it? And then similarly, we've touched on this from John O'Donoghue before, but he says what you encounter, recognize, or discover depends to a large degree on the quality of your approach. When we approach with reverence, great things decide to approach us. And it struck me that at the same time as we get down on our knees, we also see from the perspective of a child, don't we? I was in the woods the other day, just enjoying the bluebells, and I did get on my knees in the lee of a wonderful old tree that had fallen over. It was kind of a private moment, just got down on my knees, and I realized in that moment of attention and devotion and reverence that also I was seeing from the perspective as a child, and I was looking along the tree trunk, and there's just beautiful moss, and I was that much closer to the bluebells and could see from a different perspective the anemones, and I shouldn't have tried to say that, should I? And the primroses, the creatures, the smells. And it's a really special moment of remembering that as we approach with reverence, then perhaps we are able to do that as a child, the child in us who can lead us into the kingdom of heaven, life in its fullness here on earth. Perhaps it's when we get down to that perspective of a child again that we can better see God before us at our level. This time last year, it was this week last year that the UK version of The Blessing, I think, had just been released, certainly from kind of the notes that I wrote in the series. So really kind of, it's an amazing moment just to think about that and to remember that. And I remember it was on the same day as National Dawn Chorus Day, and it felt appropriate because this wonderful chorus of voices being raised as a blessing at the time. And in the context of the Aaronic blessing, the Lord bless you and keep you. Those words, the Lord bless you, I remember reading can carry with them the word blessing from the Hebrew, both the sense of sort of respectful giving of something of value, but also of kneeling. And it is an amazing thought to imagine God kneeling as an adult might kneel before a child, the child in us, to bless us, to offer us the gift of life. And perhaps it is in that moment of kneeling that we are able to see at God's level, to look into God's eyes, to receive that blessing. And as we receive, then we, of course, are able to pass it on. Let me read those words from Numbers, and perhaps you might even, if you have just a little bit of privacy, there's no pressure to at all, but you may even like to just fall upon your knees for a moment as I read these words to you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. You might imagine hearing those words being sung. And just thinking for a moment about how you felt back then a year ago, what was happening. And perhaps you might like to just give thanks in your heart for just being carried through this time, through those days of flux, through those strange and testing and challenging days that are not over yet, but you've come this far. And how moving it was. I've never been a huge fan of kind of Christian choruses and music necessarily, but just how touching I think that was for almost all of us to hear that blessing and for it to cascade out beyond the walls of the church to so many other people, and how that might also accompany us on the journey ahead. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you his peace, that peace that we read of in Thessalonians, that peace that Catherine's friend wished for her as something absolutely tangible. Let's breathe in again for a moment. Just breathe in that peace. And if you're kneeling, just imagine God before you kneeling in that utter self-giving poise of service. And perhaps it's not been easy for you to receive from God, but perhaps just with open hands today, you might receive, so that that blessing can flow through you to those around you, so that that peace might fill your heart and be carried with you as you step forward back into some kind of normal, so that you may carry a blessing with you as you proceed almost as if on your knees with the eyes of a child. Should we say the Lord's Prayer together? Lois, I'm sorry. I hope you can get up. Lois says, got to my knees aged 89 and then could not get up again. I pray that you can be raised up. Let's say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thought I'd finish just with some words from Tess Ward. I've shared this with you before, but it just really spoke to me again today as we do think about stepping forward from this place. Stepping into that notion that God is happening, being prayerful, mindful, soulful as we go. So Tess Ward says this: "O Holy One, who never took the easy path and knows how we can spoil goodness, indwell my feet with adventure, but let me not walk over others. Indwell my hands with purposeful work, but let me not be grasping. Indwell my words with your spirit of love, but let me not turn in different company. Indwell my belly with fire and passion for a better way, but let my ears listen to others. Indwell my heart with belief, but save me from arrogance. Indwell my insight with mercy, but let me see my need for mercy first." Peace be with you. Thank you so much for Lois, please say you're up or tell us if you need any help. Yeah, well, hopefully Lois is up and hopefully you are all up, but we proceed in a sense on our knees. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back next Friday. Tell your friends Click subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. You're welcome to like it today if you want, and this will go up in the next few minutes. So bless you too if you are watching later than this. Peace be with you. Go well.